and welcome to ET Garage. Today's video is going to be about Wilwood two-piece brake rotor kit for C4 Corvette. Hello, I'm Eugene Tordo and welcome to ET Garage. Today's video is going to be about this two-piece rotor Wilwood brake kit for the rear. Anyone who follows my channel knows that I have Wilwood front brakes on the front, and I have one of their front brake kits that has 6 piston calibers, the two-piece rotors, and of course that comes with the mounting brackets and everything to convert your factory brakes to more modern 6-piston calibers and two-piece rotors. I will leave a link to that up here somewhere near the end of the video, up here to the playlist and the video about that. And but today I'm going to do the rear brakes. Now I've had those on there for the front ones on probably for 20 to 30,000 miles. They've held up great. I've had no problems with them, and I'm going to go over some differences because there's different kits. But on the rear I have slotted high carbon brake rotors. I believe they're Stop Tech or something like that, one of those manufacturers. And I had Hawk HPS pads on there, and then I also had a bias spring in the master cylinder to help balance it out. Those rotors are to the end of their life. They've been on there for a really long time. I don't know the mileage. So I was going to actually originally replace them with the same rotors that's on there, but they're out of stock at Summit. And I always wanted to get matching two-piece rotors for the back. Now they do make a complete caliber and rotor package for the rear of these, just like they do for the front. And that will come with a of course with its own caliber and bracket, and then it comes with a separate parking brake caliber, which means you also need to buy separate cables. None of this stuff is cheap. This stuff here is pretty expensive, just so you know. So unless you're really into it, you know, you're better off sticking with the stock brakes from a money point of view. I'll go over the differences here in a second. I'll move the camera around and show you what I got, what comes in this kit, and why I got the kit I did. So let me move the camera around. Alright, I'm going to show you everything that comes in the kit. One thing I'm going to show you is their hats. These are aluminum, front and rear. The rear ones are different than the fronts, and what I mean is that they use a different style screw, and these need to be Loctite. On the front ones you have a choice of Loctiting them or safety wiring them. The fronts on mine I went ahead and safety wired. These have to be Loctited though, so keep that in mind. They come with 2 of these. The screws, they're poly matrix pads for the rear, and of course the rotors. Now they come with a left and a right rotor. I did notice that they actually had left in they had the rotor left and rights in the wrong spot, in the wrong boxes that they came in. I don't the boxes I already haven't opened in the basement, and I used them as to paint these, and I'll go over why I painted these here in a minute. But the reason I can tell is there's an arrow here. Hopefully you guys can see that. And that is the way they will rotate. In other words, when the car is going this direction, the wheel's going to be rotating this way. That's the way that arrow should spin. So as long as you have a left and a right, it doesn't matter which box they're in, and as long as you know how to identify them. That's what's important. Comes with instructions, which I'll go over. And they come, you can get these kits with 2 different types of rotors. You can get the slotted ones like these, or you can get the drilled and slotted ones. Drilled and slotted ones I would only use for like street use, maybe autocross. If you're going to be doing any real heavy braking like a track day, I highly recommend the slotted. I actually like the look of the slotted better. Now, the one thing I don't like about the slotted is they don't come black E-coated. The other ones, which I say are better for the street, do come black E-coated. That's one of the things I like them better for the street, because then they're, you don't have to worry about them rusting. These do not come black E-coated. I went ahead and painted them, masked them off, painted them, and that's why they look the way they do right now. These, I'm going to have to weigh these, but something tells me, even with the aluminum hat in the center, these will probably weigh more than the stock one-piece rotors. And the reason I'm saying that is these have what they call a much higher vein count. So there's a lot more iron in there. There's more of these veins. And that's the reason they weigh more. Like my front brake rotors, they weighed more than the factory one-piece brake rotors, even though they have an aluminum hat. And that's because they just have a lot more meat to them. So let me break out the instructions. They do come with instructions, all sorts of warnings, of course, and stuff like that. But one thing you're going to need is, to assemble these, is Loctite, a torque wrench, and torque bit. I'm not sure what size these are. I'll find out here shortly. Make sure you use the correct Loctite, 271. Yeah, let's see if we can read these instructions. All right. I'm just going to skip the general information, but basically just to make sure you have the right kit for your car. This is for Chevrolet C4's model years 88 through 96. So if you have 84 through 87, check to see if they have a different kit. They have a diagram. Like here you can see the drilled and slotted rotors, and then the slotted like I have. The reason I chose the slotted is I do an occasional track day. I haven't done any this year yet, but hopefully I will get one. And you do use the brakes. I prefer these. I also just prefer the slotted look better than I do the drilled and slotted. It's just a personal preference, but that's just me. But let's go over these instructions. They're pretty simple. Okay, it goes over disassembly instructions of the rear brake. I will go over that. Basically, you have to remove the caliper, remove the pads, remove the bracket. When you remove the bracket, I highly recommend you use heat on the bolts before you break them loose. They should be Loctited. And it goes over assembly. And okay, and of course there's a caution about all bolts must be fully engaged. Inserts nuts. Be sure to check that all bolts are either flush or protruding through flange side of insert nut after shimming. Okay, that would have to do with the calipers. This doesn't apply to this kit. Okay, assemble the rotor to the hat with the bolts as shown in figure 1. Using an alternate sequence, remove bolts one at a time. Apply red Loctite to the threads and torque to 25 pounds. So basically what they're saying is assemble it with all the bolts and then take one out at a time, Loctite them, and then reassemble them and torque them to 25 foot-pounds. I believe they are saying that in order to make sure everything is mounted flush and torqued properly before you torque it. So keep that in mind. Okay, and then it goes on basically goes over how to install your install the rotor onto the hub. Make sure the hub surface is clean. They'll go over all that, and remount your bracket and your caliper and your shoes. And then it goes on to if you're going to be rubber hoses and stuff like that, if you're going to be changing to the stainless steel hoses and all that stuff, and bleeding. I'm not going to go over all that stuff. I'm just going to go over assembling these two-piece rotors, mounting them on a car on one side, and that will be it. All right. Here I have the hat mounted to a board using some wood screws, and the board is mounted to the vise, and that will hold it steady while I torque everything down, because it's going to get torqued to 25 foot-pounds. Put all the screws in, just get them started, and once you get it started, use a T41 torque bit. You can use an electric ratchet like I am to speed it up. Just do not over tighten them. Just run them down, and that is it. Once they're all ran down and everything's seated, go ahead and remove one, put the Loctite on it, run it down, and mark it with a marker so you know which one you Loctite it. Move on to the next one. Do it in a star pattern, just like if you're putting lug nuts on a wheel, you want to go in a star pattern, alternating across from one side to the other, and mark each one. Just keep going and marking them and Loctiting them and running them down. Once that's done, go on to the torque wrench, and then you'll torque them down. Once you torque them, go ahead and mark them again so you know which ones you torqued. Now once you're done torquing all of them, you can go over with the torque wrench again, make sure they're torqued, and that's it. So let's move on. Okay, the old caliper is off. You can see it's chewed up pretty bad. This might actually, I'd have to actually measure it to see if it can be ground. Normally these days no one turns or grinds brake rotors anymore. Either way, I'm upgrading to these. I haven't weighed them on a scale yet, but these actually feel, I'd say they feel about the same weight. So rotation wise, if I have a chance later, I'll weigh them and I'll post it up here. Not sure if you saw the footage of me taking it off. Something went wrong with the camera. So I'll go over it real quick. Basically, 2 bolts go on this caliber here. One's Allen and one's a 14mm nut. And you'll need a 17mm open end to hold this part while you unscrew that part. After you get that out, you get the caliber, the pads out of the way. And then these are the ones that are going to be a problem, especially if they've never been removed in a very long time. All these will be, both these and these will be Loctited on. You're better off applying heat. I use the heat gun, not a torch. I prefer a heat gun over a torch. It's just safer, in my opinion. It takes a little longer to heat this up. But these will need to be cleaned, wire wheeled, and I'll have to apply Loctite to them again when I put it back together. These surfaces here you want real clean, and then these pins here, you want to take them out, clean them up real good, and re-grease them. And you want to use, of course, brake grease on these surfaces here and here, and then reassemble it. So that's pretty much it. Sorry if I didn't get the footage of that. Something going on with the GoPro. I think it might be time I buy new equipment. So anyway, let me get this all cleaned up and back on. Okay, make sure your hub surface is real clean. I recommend you rub a thin layer of anti-seize on that surface too, especially with iron rotors, because they will seize to it. That will prevent them from seizing to it. If you ever had to take off a seized rotor, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is the simple part. Put that there. Run down a nut. Hold it in place. Most of the time I don't do this, but I'm going to do it for the purpose of this video. I'm only going to put one like that. All right, time to mount this caliber. These nuts will get Loctite, and they go through, basically they go through the aluminum carrier here, and then screw into here, and then they get torqued to 70 foot-pounds, which is a pain in the butt in here because you're working in tight quarters, but it's not much you can do about that. Technically, you're supposed to replace these with new ones anytime you take the caliber off, or the bracket, no one makes new ones anymore, so you just have to reuse your old ones or find a suitable one. Let me Loctite these and we'll put them on. Alright, go ahead and Loctite those bolts. And I always like to, once I go ahead and put them on, I always like to do the top one first, line that up. That makes it easier to line the bottom one up, which is a little bit more difficult to get to. Run them down, all the way down, and then go grab a torque wrench. And torquing, like here, I tried using a 6-point socket, and it was too long, and I don't have a short one, so I used a short one with an adapter. And you can see, torque them down to 70 foot-pounds. It is tough. There we go. Woo. Now we're going to put the pads in. And this surface is here to get greased. I don't like greasing them. I like greasing the pads themselves. Use brake grease. Okay, the pads. There are an inner and an outer. Inner has the indicator on it. That will just slide in. Let's see here. Or should slide in just like that. And this one should slide in too. I don't like the way that's sliding in there. This might need some custom fitting. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. That's in there. And okay, I am going to need to compress this a little bit, so hold on. This is how I do it. There are other methods. This is how I do it. They make a tool, or you can just do like I do. If you're cheap and don't want to spend money on a tool. Now you might have to break the brake bleeder on this to get it to stay in. Then you get brake fluid all over the place. That's why I don't like doing it that way. I may have to though. Let's see. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah. Make sure these clips are in there correctly. There we go. Ta-da! That went well. I like to get the lower one first. These are supposed to get Loctite too. I personally don't like using the Loctite on these, but you should. Alright, once the caliper is in place where you can line the bolts up, the two guide pin bolts, the lower one is 16 foot-pounds, the upper one is 26 foot-pounds. I looked that up in the factory service manual. I didn't realize there was two different torque specs for the upper and lower until I looked that up. So. There we go. That side is done. All right, I just need to do the other side. If you wonder how long this took, I think, let me look at the time. I'm going to say about 2 hours with me filming. How long, the thing that will probably hold you up the longest is getting that bracket off, especially those two nuts that hold the bracket to the hub bearing carrier. Use heat. Heat is, in this case, is where heat's your friend. If you have a hot air gun like I have, I recommend you use that. It does take longer to heat it up. So keep that in mind, so be a little more patient. You can use a torch. Just be careful when you use a torch, don't set your car on fire and all that good stuff, or damage. You could end up damaging like a brake line or the brake hose or the caliper. So just be careful if you use the torch. I'm going to end this video here. My battery's about dead. Sorry about that lost footage taking it off. It's the same thing as putting it on in reverse. It's just more difficult if, you know, because of the Loctite and if it's been on there a long time, corrosion. Keep in mind, this is also a good time to, like, if you're going to paint your brake calipers and or anything else you want to do under there, like if you still have the rubber brake hose, you might want to change that to a stainless steel brake hose and all that good stuff. So just keep that in mind. So that wraps it up. That wasn't bad at all, actually, so I'm glad I did that. See how they hold up in the future. Just stay tuned to the channel. Like I said, I will have links to the Wilwood brake install that I did and anything else that I think is relevant. And I'll probably add this to the playlist. So, in the meantime, everybody have a great day and God bless.